Oh,
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us again. This is Kris with Inspired Energy, and with me I have Hartwell, who is going to be discussing today
good
the
morning.
human design type of the manifestors, the initiators of the world. Good morning, Hartwell.
Good morning.
How are
Good
you
morning,
today?
everyone.
Ready to dive into another topic?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So maybe where we'll start is, can you just tell us what is a manifestor? Like, what is their aura and how do they affect others?
Sure. Well, a manifestor is, from the human design perspective, the perspective of their design, they don't have the sacral defined. Okay. Obviously, only the generators, which are the majority of the world, have the sacral center defined.
Mm-hmm.
But there are three other motors besides the sacral. So a manifestor is somebody who has one of those other three motors defined directly or indirectly through to the throat. And their aura is kind of repelling. It's closed and repelling, and that has a big impact, in the way they move through the world.
So by repelling, what do you mean? Can you explain that? Because I think of like instead of coming towards somebody, you repel them.
Well, maybe a metaphor would help. There's this
Okay.
sense of maybe a shark in the water, that they are just a little bit wilder. They are something different. They're something that they can and often do intimidate other people because there's this experience. And remember, this is a visceral response, because human design talks about how we actually appear in the world aurically. So we get affected by people no matter what our mindset is, no matter what our set of beliefs are. So there's a sense of meeting a manifestor that you're meeting with something different and something that
So it's like a wild card or the unknown, and you never know what to expect, and that sort of thing. That kind of situation. Oh, okay.
That's correct.
Now I get it. So that can be too much for some people, especially somebody that may be introverted or something, if that person is like bigger than life, right? Is that what you mean?
Yeah. I mean, and they're not necessarily loud. They're not necessarily dramatic or anything like that. It's just that there's a sense that they'd rather be left alone, and they're very independent and they don't need you. And for many of, the way many people move through the world, they're looking for, how does this person need me? How can they be manipulated? How can they be affected? And remember, this is all on a nonverbal level.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's just a energetic or a feeling that you get when you meet a manifestor.
Yes.
Okay. So what kind of role do manifestors play in the world? Like, what is their role? So generators are the motors of the world and we get things done. What do manifestors do?
Manifestors set things in motion. They're the initiators of the world. They're independent, they're free, and they don't need anybody else to start something. So they're the ones that spark the things that happen in the world often. And because of how human history is unfolded, we often are all trying to act like manifestors. But only they only make up 10% of the world, approximately, less than 10. Right. And we're all trying to be like them, but we can't be.
Yeah. So then people like me, a generator, we get frustrated when we try to initiate things instead of letting myself respond. Whereas a manifestor is initiating and then he's living his design and he is happy doing that. Is that what you mean?
Yes, that's right. Okay. So for a manifestor, they would really just want to be left alone to do what they want when they want to do it. And often there's this, when they get a response from people or a reaction from people, it's like, why are you even caring about me? It's like, why are you even bothering with me? I just want to do my own thing here.
Yeah, just let me get on with it kind of thing, right?
Yes.
So what does a healthy manifestor look like? Like
A
if they're
healthy
living their
manifestor looks like somebody who's paying attention to their own strategy, which is to inform, and based on their own inner authority, they are acting. They are acting, when they have the impulse to act, they inform the environment, and that releases or minimizes resistance, and then they can go forward. And they can go forward in a way that's peaceful.
right.
So what they really want is to live in the world in a way that is peaceful. But if they are not in alignment, they provoke anger from the environment and within themselves.
Okay. So then their response is to be angry when people are in their space and they just want to be left alone to initiate things. Is that what you're saying?
Partly that, but the anger arises. The anger arises when they meet with resistance in the world. So if they don't follow their strategy, then other people react to them. They react with discomfort. They react with resistance. They act with judgment often.
Right.
And the manifestor just wants to live their life.
They just want to get on with it.
Yeah.
So not only when they their impact, so not only when they initiate, but also when they leave a situation, their presence is felt. Can you go into that a little bit?
Yes. So they are designed to impact people, to activate people, and to initiate change in the world. And when they make a decision, or when through their inner authority, they have this response to the world where they feel like initiating something, then if they inform, they move forward with that, and it causes things to happen. Okay. And if they're doing it correctly, then it sparks change in the world. But so they're doing something, it can spark change. But what is also interesting is that sometimes they very quickly have maybe the desire to leave a situation. So for instance, if a manifestor somehow got the impulse or the message that they needed to leave a job, their decision to leave the job is going to, in a sense, to absent themselves from the situation, is also going to provoke change in the environment.
So whether they're there or not, they're initiating change, is what you're saying.
Yes.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty powerful thing to have as a manifestor. So what fears must a manifestor confront in themselves if they're to succeed in living their design and living as themselves?
Well, there's a couple of things, and let's see if I can remember them. One, they have to confront their own anger, the potential anger that they might feel in relationship to their environment. Another thing is that they have to, if when they inform people, I should say more about that, but maybe I will in a minute. But when they inform people, they're going to get a reaction from them.
Right.
And so they have to deal with the fear of what that person's reaction is going to be. It could be rejection. It could be, it could be any number of things. Or it could be, the response could be that the person wants to control them. It's like you're not allowed to do that.
Right.
And so they've lived a lifetime of having people try to control them because they inherently create a discomfort in people that then people, can bring out that control mechanism in others.
So yeah, you have to be very aware of your environment if you're a manifestor, because some of us only probably affect people when we're in the environment, but they seem to affect both, like whether they're there or they're not. So I imagine it's a constant balance for them.
Well, just to be clear, it's not so much that they affect people when they're not there.
Mhm.
It's that they affect people if they leave something. So their
Right.
leaving will cause that effect.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm. Cool. So what happens when a manifestor doesn't follow their strategy? So they get angry, but how do people feel about them?
Well, before we answer that, we partly answered that already. Let's describe their strategy a little bit more, which is to inform. So the whole purpose of informing is to reduce resistance from other people. So a manifestor has this desire to do something, they have come to an awareness that they need to make a change. And then their strategy is to inform people. So, okay, I'm so, I need to resign from this job, for instance. And then they do it, so them letting you know what they need to do allows the other people in their environment to prepare psychologically. They don't feel blindsided. Okay.
Right.
And so that's how they were, that's how they move through the world and find peace is by cooperation with others, by informing others. If they don't do that, people will often feel angry, they'll feel abandoned, they'll project all sorts of stuff about what the manifestor's motivation was onto them.
Right.
And they'll, it just creates
Drama.
It can create chaos and drama. Yeah.
Yeah. So I imagine that that's something that they have to be aware of when they're dealing with people and with relationships, especially because we all know people that get into toxic relationships. Somebody who's a manifestor would have trouble whether they're there or they're not. Their people are going to be after them after they leave, right? So,
well, that's a good point, Kris, because the word narcissist is used by so many people these days to describe certain behaviors.
right.
But what if some of those behaviors are simply them judging the other person for being a different type than they are? What if somebody judges a manifestor for just being themselves as narcissistic because they don't seem to care or need to inform them?
Right.
See, a manifestor doesn't really need to inform you.
Right.
They're independent. They're independent wild beings. They don't need to ask a god, say back in centuries and millennia ago. They don't need to talk with the gods or talk or consult with anybody else in order to make their decisions, because they already know what they want to do. They already know. And so they don't go through the same sort of experience as other people do. And so if you have a person like that in your environment, then you could project all sorts of stuff onto them.
Oh yeah, I can see this like in a relationship where the husband's a manifestor and he's just gonna go golfing because he wants to go golfing, but he doesn't tell his wife that he's going golfing, and she's at home making supper, doing all these things, and then he comes home and there's a big fight about it because she projects that he doesn't love her, he doesn't care, all those types of things, right? And then you get into that vicious circle, right? Makes a lot of sense. Doesn't it?
So this is why, human design, just in that one small example, it can throw a huge amount of light onto interpersonal dynamics.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, a manifestor has grown up, with people expecting them to be a generator. So they have a history of feeling controlled, thwarted, slowed down. They don't like to ask for permission. So so you either have the kind of manifestor who they might become very aggressive and obnoxious. That would be one potential way for them to express, or they become completely disempowered, shut down, and passive. And I mean, if you think about if you're a woman manifestor, and with the conditioning that women face, it's maybe even more often the case with women that they're disempowered and seem to be passive.
Right. Mhm. So maybe you can just tell us who some of the most famous manifestors are and let us know what they did.
Well, if we look at actors, Jack Nicholson is a manifestor. Robert De Niro is a manifestor. And you can sense that they're a little bit less easily controlled. I think of Jack Nicholson, and I think he's always in roles where he seems to be the wild card, right?
Yeah, even the roles they play. That's what I was just going to say. Yeah.
But of course, the more incendiary example would be Mao Zedong and Adolf Hitler.
Oh, wow.
So Hitler was a manifestor.
He definitely affected people.
And throughout history, manifestors have been the generals, the warlords, the high priests. And, in order to maintain their power, they created hierarchies, to try and control people.
Yeah.
So, it's just the founder of human design, the one who all the information came to, he was also a manifestor, and he talked quite a bit about that.
Yeah.
And his experience in the world.
Well, right on. So I hope that you guys have all enjoyed our show today. Where we've been talking about manifestors. Join us next week, Wednesday at 9:30, and we'll be talking about reflectors. If you want more information on your type or you would like a reading with Hartwell, you can contact us here at Clair-i-tea, 587-596-3333. And we hope you continue to follow the show and share with friends, and hope that, you do these kinds of readings so that you can understand your design, how your partner's designed, and you can actually function in the world much better. So thank you again, Hartwell, for joining us today, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Thank you, Kris.
Yes. God bless everyone.